Hey there, YouTubers. Alright, so I'm going to take this computer, which is the i7-10700K, with a EVGA GTX 1080, 4000 megahertz RAM, two 8 gig sticks there. I'm going to take this, I'm going to downgrade it to a Celeron G5900. And we're going to do some Fortnite with it, see how that goes. Of course, there's going to be CPU bottlenecking, but we're just going to see how playable it is. Now, I have done this with the Pentium G6400. It was, somewhat playable. And once again, there was CPU bottlenecking. It's going to be a lot worse here with just a 2-core, 2-thread CPU. And so, why am I doing this? Because actually, I'm going to be upgrading this to a i9 here shortly. So, I figure, might as well do it now rather than later. We'll keep this monster heatsink on here. And of course, you don't need a heatsink like this for a Celeron G5900. This is a 140 millimeter fan on here, and you can definitely do some overclocking with a K-type chip. So, let's get started. So, first thing I'm going to do here is pop these off. And since I'm going to reinstall this, I don't have to disconnect the CPU fan. But hopefully we'll do this without damaging anything. Now, one of the things, why am I doing this, the Celeron on this motherboard instead of with the B460, H470? Well, one, I don't have many of those with me. In case you're tracking, I am in Africa at the moment, and we only have limited gear here with us, so I can't do all that I would like, right? And other things we can do with this motherboard that we can't without the B460, not that I can do extreme overclocking, but I should be able to push power limits, I would imagine, up quite a bit. Another thing we'll be able to do, which we can also do with the B460, H470, is we will probably boost the base clock frequency up quite a bit. Kick that Celeron in a little bit, alright? Now, this is not going to be the drive that goes in here. It'll probably be a Samsung EVO 970, which will give us even more performance. And you will see I will use different graphics cards through some different videos. Now, the i9 is supposed to get here today or tomorrow, and therefore I don't have a lot of time. So let's go ahead and finish this up. Spent a lot of time talking. So we're going to take our Phillips, loosen this side a little. Now there is a lot of tension on these guys, so you don't want to completely unscrew one side. I say a lot of tension, I mean. You will notice it if you do one side completely and leave the other side tight. I'll just leave it at that. So we will reapply thermal paste. And, depending on how this does, I may just get the G5920, which I believe is now the world's fastest Celeron. Somebody, when I made my original video saying this was the fastest Celeron, the one I have, at the time it was, because there weren't any other ones out. So we got to clean that up. I'm going to put that away, and let me pause this for a moment. Alright, so that's all cleaned up, almost like it's brand new again. So we've cleaned up the CPU. Unfortunately, it looks like we have to remove this bracket. If I didn't have the RAM in, I could potentially just loosen up one side. We'll see if we can do this without completely taking this off here. I always like to, work smarter, not harder, right? And we'll see if we can pull this off. So pop that off there. And so this won't stay up, so I've got to get in here and grab this. We don't want the bracket slamming down on the CPU. and boom, it's out. So I'm going to put this away. Now normally you would use electrostatic gear. I'm in frickin' Africa where it's so frickin' hot. I don't think there's any possibility of static electricity at the moment. Alright, so here is our G5900. I don't know if you can read the text. Basically, you know, ATX motherboard. There's all kinds of ways to know how to orient this one. If you do have an ATX motherboard, to your left is going to be where the I/O shield is going to be. So look at the way the print is oriented. Basically how you would read it. That's one way. Whoops. Now there are notches on. Stay up there. There are a couple notches on this. If you can see that lower left corner, about, I don't know, ½ inch up. And then on that side, there are protrusions here and there, one on each side of this, that this will fit in. So that's another way to realize you've got it right. Triangle here, and then a triangle on the bracket as well. And if we had you were installing this for the first time, you would have your little plastic cover would have a triangle on it. All right. So before we lock this down, we want to make sure it's in there. It's not going to move around. And then we're going to drop this in. Want to make sure that this slips underneath there and it's in good position. And then we're going to take the arm and drop it in there. So it's good to go. Now we need some thermal paste, folks. Depending on what you have, potentially you might have some of this cheap stuff. I'm going to use real Noctua paste. This comes with these CPU coolers. And they say on the directions for it, this kind of CPU to put a 4mm diameter on there. If you were doing this for AMD, process would be slightly different. I believe they say 4 to 5mm. Chip's a little bit bigger. All right. So last thing I would ever say to you is to waste your money on doing a Z490 motherboard with this CPU. Okay, it's way overkill. You're not going to get much out of it. Now, if this is an i3-10100 and up, then it's probably, in my opinion, it might be worth it. You will see some performance gains out of the faster speed RAM that you can run. That said, it may be better to spend $50, $70 on a faster CPU, which will definitely offset any gain you're going to get out of having something like that in there. Alright, so now we got to put our bracket back. And if you're enjoying the video, please give it a like. If you've actually watched this far into the video and you dislike it, please give it a like anyways, because you did watch the video this far into it. I just heard that on another video. I thought I'd steal that. I thought it was pretty clever. But in all seriousness, if you did like it, please give it a like. Alright, so let's say you were putting this together from scratch. You want to make sure that the CPU cooler is oriented in this direction, okay? So here's where your I/O shield would be. It needs to be facing this direction. Now, dependent on your CPU cooler, they might not be symmetrical. Alright, this one looks pretty good. So it doesn't matter whether I have it this way or 180 degrees. And then I'm going to set this down, folks. I may have to pause the camera. But basically what I'm trying to do is line up these fasteners with those posts, okay? And one-handed is difficult to do. So assume I put it right on top of there, and when we pick up, I'll be fastening it down. Alright, so now I'm going to fasten this down, and I'm right-handed, but I'm doing this left-handed. So you want to alternate these. Until you get at least a few threads on each side. Oops! Wow, almost dropped the camera, folks. Alright, so I'm going to get to that point where this will be all tightened down, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so the next step might be, if you're doing this from scratch, to install your, you could go ahead and put the CPU cooler, make the 4-pin connection there. Like I said earlier, I set mine aside because I know I was going to put it back on. And what we're going to do is basically lock these brackets in over into these grooves, okay? So it's going to be hard to do one-handed. So this is what it looks like on the left side. And then I'm going to come over here, if I can get do this without my hand being in the way, pull down on this bracket and up and over, and boom, that's locked in place. Now if you find you're sitting up too high or too low, you have issues with RAM clearance, you may have to undo that and move it around. Now we are just about ready to fire this up. I've got the wrong drive in here, so we're going to pull this one. And you know, usually see number one Phillips or less will allow you to get these out of here. And let's find another drive. Alright, as promised, Samsung EVO 970. Make sure that wasn't the 970 Plus. And this is going to slap in here basically at an angle, slide in here, boom. Now we'll want to put our little set screw on here, our little fastener. This is where you want a magnetic screwdriver. And so I'm going to place that right on the tip so I can easily have this hold it in place and then bring it over here. Alright, so you can just barely see it on there. And I'm basically kind of come down here, which should line me up hopefully, and then fasten it in. And boom. We don't want to go overboard. You can actually, I've broken some of these off. Not by, I don't think it was my fault, but. So folks, this thing's ready to go. Normally you would shut the power off and all that good stuff, but yours truly's, you know, made a few mistakes with this, which, yeah, I would not suggest doing. So really what you should have done at the beginning was unplug this completely. At a minimum, hit that switch, okay? So it's now in the power on position. And I've got this little button here. So in case you don't know, if you have a computer case, obviously you would make all these connections. The one connector that matters is your power switch to turn this on. See, I don't have any of the other front panel connectors. And we've just got this little gizmo. So I'm going to hit that button, try and get that in the angle. It's a terrible camera angle, folks. You should see the graphics card light up here in a second. And boom, there it is. So let's switch from here to hopefully seeing something on the screen. Fingers crossed. So, you know, obviously this thing worked before I took it apart, and it should still work now. It looks like it will. Unless we get a blue screen error. So, I'm going to get right into Fortnite after this, folks, and you will see, hopefully, a link down below exactly to some Fortnite videos, or you will, you know, have to find them. Hate to say it. Hopefully I'll put the link. Alright, so what happened? There we go. So it's ready to log in. So we're good to go, folks. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.